out that the loose squelch allows the voter to do its job. And what it'll do is it'll actually track, rather than squelching and returning pilot code, which can have some dead air in there, it allows the DSP voting process to track the receiver that's going, that should be squelching, right into the noise floor, and forces the vote onto another module rather than requiring status or pilot tone to return to remove that site from the voting process.
That's a question. If you were to quantify the signal strengths, when you say tight and loose squelch, would loose squelch be setting for a threshold of like 3/4 of a microvolt?
Minus 121 to minus 124.
Okay, so pretty loose.
Pretty loose. It was surprising that even if you wanted to set it down like minus 127, it seemed to operate fine. And we played with it. We did want it to squelch before it got totally unreadable. So kind of what we did is we played with it. Credit to Steve Kovacs for being at the far end of all these experiments. But we found that if we set it somewhere around minus 124, minus 123, that it did work fine. We wanted to ensure that if a receiver was getting nothing but noise out of it and the ear could not recover the audio at all from that site, that it did squelch. But that's kind of how we picked it. And we then let the SNV-12 do its processing job to do the site selection. Did I answer that? So overall, our alignment process we followed, we planned the process, which involves deciding where levels need to be. We aligned the transport channels to ensure there was nothing goofy on the DS0 cards, the T1 shelf, or whatever you're using to transport. We did a first pass of alignment through the motor, sitting on the shelf, racked up in the lab environment. So we aligned the receivers, we verified the channel performance, and we actually went out and swept channels, so we were struggling with the problem, but for us, verifying channel performance was short at the far end, and looked at the noise level received at the office, because remember, kind of the topic of this is making the decision based on noise. We set the SVM for level with pilot and status tone, and then we equalized the noise floor by looking at the hex values reported by each card using the stat command of the rear connector. And then we found that there were differences on sites, even with the same signal level. If you went around and took a service monitor and injected 1 microvolt into all the receivers with pretty good, audio quality, we reviewed what those hex levels being reported were. We decided looking at all that, we decided what the baseline hex value should be for just okay. And knowing what that was, we then went through on each site motor module and adjusted the switch settings to get all modules that if they have the same level of signal, the same audio quality, they report it to the primary processor, the same hex value. And it took a couple cuts going through this to learn it, but we were able to get to the point where if the same signal level and audio quality was delivered to the site that produced the same hex value, we were being reported to the CPM processor. And finally, on closing, we found that if we were having problems, we made a decision one of two ways. We would either bias problem sites so they were less likely to vote by changing those dip switch settings on the individual cards, or we biased primary sites, those in the demographically dense areas that had a lot of traffic, so they were more likely to vote. That concludes the very short version of this program. Any quick questions? Okay, I'll be available after with their call.